first grew curious about the paranormal? Dare you dig deeper? You are listening to House of Asher.
To House of Asher. I'm your host, Steve Asher, and scary stuff. This is live, so hopefully I'm not going to drop an F-bomb or do something equally embarrassing. Anyway, just to let you know, this is episode 71, and we have a really interesting guest. And the reason we have the guest, which I'm not saying the name of just yet, we'll tell you in a minute. Just hold your horses. Growing up through the 70s and all that stuff, and in the 80s, that was sort of a really interesting time, especially in regards of paranormal stuff, and which touches on everything: cryptids, UFOs, ghosts, different parallel dimensions and whatnot. It was sort of a kind of a wide open sort of deal. So one of the things that always struck me as interesting, that I never had an abduction experience. I have had a sighting of something that I won't go into it too deep, just because I've talked about this before in other shows, but where something went in behind the moon. It was kind of cigar shaped, and maybe half the size of the moon. It was a pretty large thing. I thought it was a cloud. It didn't go across the moon, and it almost looked like it went in behind the moon and turned and went straight out past the moon, out of my view, on the dark side of the moon. I was a young kid, wasn't smoking, drinking anything, and I actually had another friend of mine who saw that, and I thought that was a really weird, interesting little thing. It didn't really scare me, it just made me curious. And I'd always thought, you hear about people that have experiences. How do they cope with that? What do they do with that? Do they kind of ball up and go completely away from it? I know some people's had a lot of had UFO experiences, became maybe very religious, as a protective talisman type situation. And then you have some people that it's kind of like those movies where they say, oh, there's a noise in the basement, and one person says, no, I'm good, and the other person says, let's go check it out. Our next guest, I think, would probably fall into that category. I'll go ahead and introduce you. Mr. Russ Kellett is our guest. How you doing, Russ?
Okay, thank you, Steve. Nice to speak to you.
It's really cool to have you on, and like I said, I'm not sure exactly what time it is there. Like I said, it's about 6 p.m. Central Time here in the U.S. About what time are you in right now?
It's just 5 minutes past 12 midnight.
Oh wow, okay. Well, I'll try not to keep you up too long. And like I said, this is
I'm always up. I'm always up late.
All right, you're sort of a night owl.
I'm an abductee, so yeah. It's one of those things that happens.
Well, if I can ask you before we get really deep into your story, there's probably something I should have done before I even did that. Hey, live radio. I just want to make sure to say to please go to stevieasher.com. That is my little page, my website. It's got my books and my things like that, t-shirts and whatnot. Also, you can look me up on Facebook under Stevie Asher, and you can also find Mr. Kellett on his page on Facebook, as well as some other pages that we'll give out here in a minute. But your nocturnal sort of being very diligent and aware, almost hyper aware. I'm sure you probably have a certain amount of PTSD due to this. Was this something that you had before the abductions, or is that something that sort of grew in after the events?
I'm not sure as such, for the simple reason this is a lifelong event that's taken place. So it started off from when I was a young child, all the way up until I think it was early this year. I think it was March, February, March. I think when I was sat down, I was looking on Facebook and chatting to somebody. And basically, I had these, what you would call alien creatures, basically come into my room, and I was subjected to having my implants taken out. So, I'd been talking to people on the internet, and since then, I was supposed to go to hospital on the Saturday evening, and instead Monday morning I had to go to the doctors, and they've given me some of this ear spray, 5 milliliters or something, autumn was spray. It's for an infection in my right ear.
Now, was that
So
due to the fact that they were? I'm sorry, I was just saying. Is that due to the fact that they were experimenting on your ear?
it since basically what happened was that they took the implants out of my ears, my eyes, and my nose.
Wow.
So
See, is that something that? Well, I was going to say, is that something that's it seems like it's common to a point. I mean, not that the abductions are common, obviously, but it seems like why are they wanting to jam it up into your nose? The reason I ask this, I'm more of along the lines of ghosts and that kind of thing, which is mainly what I write about. So the UFO things, I'm sort of at arm's length, not purposely, just because I haven't had that experience to my knowledge. Did they have? I mean, did they communicate with you in any way to go, look, we're putting this in your nose because it tracks this and that, or in your ear because it does this and that?
no, basically they just came, and I felt a little bit drowsy, and I knew I was in a different room, and I could see them. It was a little bit blurry and what have you, and I could feel something inside of my neck, and it was I can't explain. I just felt a bit of a pain at the sort of like in my neck, and the next thing I remember was my ears, sort of like, and I'm thinking, oh God, no, what are you doing to my ears? And then, of course, my nose, and then my eyes. Or was it my ears, my eyes, and my nose? I think it was my ears, my nose, and then my eyes. And I know what's happened now, and I know why. The ears are basically an hearing device, so that I can hear them communicate with me. Right, yeah. The eyes, again, there is a mechanism put in there, which what happens is that when I'm taken off this planet, etc., I can actually see like images, and like imagine. I think someone was talking about a fighter plane, and they was talking about they could see instructions coming up on the actual front of the screen of the aircraft in the cockpit, and there was like you could see basically instructions and all sorts of information that's shot up, if you see what I mean. So it's akin to that, where I can see the information when I'm looking, right? Yeah, and it's basically comes up as I'm looking. And giving me instructions and telling me, if the enemy, the location, we found the actual enemy, location, etc. And also images pop up as well. So the nose, I'm not sure why the one in my nose is there, but I know that was very painful when it was taken out. And like I say, I'm left, I'm sort of like struggling, sort of like for most of this year in pain with using something else, something here, I won't say what they call it, but it's for decongestion of your nose, because I'm having problems with my breathing after. So I'm sort of like shoving that up my nose, and I'm spraying this stuff in my ears. So obviously there's some kind of infection that's happened. So something's contaminated. So it speaks for itself. I remember posting on the internet, on Facebook, like, I've just had this happen. This is really, unusual. But and I think it was about 2 or 4 o'clock in the morning when it happened. So it's just one of those things that these things happen. You don't have to be in bed. These things can come when you're downstairs, in your room. It's a fallacy that you just people are asleep and are taken when they're in bed. And you were saying earlier about people being abducted. Only knows, just how many people are abducted each year. That is a big question mark.
Yeah. Some of the stuff you said had brought a couple of different questions. If it's okay, I'm going to throw them at you real quick. First of all, well, actually, one is sort of an observation. Pardon me. If you have someone who is, say, someone who's been a victim of, or been through war, and been, kind of shell shocked or PTSD'd,
Yeah.
You don't laugh them out of the room, and you try to give them respect. You try to be understanding. If there's someone who's a victim of rape, or domestic abuse, or some sort of ritualistic mistreatment, you don't treat people like that. But for some reason, folks that have had or are having, because like you said, this is not a one-time event. This has been your life. It just seems like it's an easy target. It seems like, for whatever reason,
it is if you let people.
Right.
It is if you're an easy target. If say it to my face. People are not so clever. If I'm a big guy and sort of like you try to take their eyes out of me about being abducted, and you'll be on the floor.
Right.
It's as simple as that. I won't stand any nonsense.
Right.
I give talks, and if somebody wants to, sort of like get a bit busy with me and what have you in a conference, you'll stand toe to toe with me.
Right. Well, and that's that's one of the great things that I like about you is the fact that sometimes I think people are almost made to feel like, don't get me wrong, there's a certain victimization that's happening, but there's a point of going, you kind of take the reins of it a little bit. You're not like, oh, I'm not saying like, oh, woe is me. Obviously, you've went through some hell, but what I mean is, you seem like you said, look, this is what I'm saying. I'll say it to your face, and if if you want to dance, that's okay. Not that I'm saying you're going out there looking for trouble, but it's one of these things. You're like, look, this is my life. Don't play with me. This is what I'm dealing with right now, and the odds are the people who are naysaying and mocking it couldn't handle it.
You see, the thing is, what we've got, you see, is like faceless people on the internet usually. You can call them what's the name, trolls, etc. And they'll say things, and they'll sort of like offer you out and what have you, and call you. But you'll get them outside in the street and say, "This is my ring," They're not so clever then. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't say anything. I'm not out for trouble. I'm telling people, I want to get to know what is going on, because the thing is, there's three possibilities. Either I'm a liar, right? Yeah. Either I'm a liar, I'm making this up. I've never wrote a book. I've never made any money in this subject, and I've been in it for 30 years. So, why would I want to make it up? It does cause people trouble sometimes. Like I say, people want to sort of like dance and get people causing trouble, and sort of like, the next thing is, if I'm not telling lies, right, yeah, it's true, right, yeah. If it's true, there's a big, big problem here. Not only for me, for the others that have been abducted too, right, yeah. Now the thing is, when you look at the number of people that say they've been abducted, right, yeah, it's a big number. I mean, it's bigger than what people can imagine, for the simple reason I have people that do not want to become known as an abductee, right, yeah, or somebody who's met these creatures, a contactee.
Right.
So the next possibility is that we're not lying. I'm not lying, right, yeah, but I'm not telling the truth, right, yeah, or I am telling the truth, but I'm not. It's like the third one, in a way. It's like I'm telling something that I believe to be true, right, yeah, and it's being put there, right.
You mean like a screen memory almost?
well, yeah, something has put this in my mind and other people's minds that this has happened to us. Now, that is actually scarier than somebody telling lies, somebody telling the truth. This happening and somebody putting it there, I would say, is even more scarier, because why are they doing it? For what purpose is it serving?
Right. What's the end game for that? And that's the thing that, I was going to ask you that too, because you were talking about this happened so little. And like I said, I definitely want to get into kind of the meat of what actually initially really happened. Do you have, like you're talking about, memories that seem like they were placed there? I know some abductees have talked about seeing what they thought were animals or owls, or which, I mean, it's an animal, but like.
Oh no, we've gone beyond that. This is more than sort of like screen memories, and people repeating what I call repeaters. That's people that see the television and then repeat something that they've seen on TV, and then go out there and start talking at conferences and what have you. And what else do they call themselves? There's a name for these people now. Someone was talking the other day, and they said, "I'm an experiencer," right? And well, what on earth does that mean? And what it is, they haven't got the kahunas right here to come out there and say that they're an abductee or contactee. They're an experiencer. It's beyond me. Sit down and shut up. You know what I mean? I've experienced a lot of things. You know what I mean? It's like just beyond me, some of this now. Some of this, it's like, it seems to be a new age sort of like saying, experiencer. And, it's beyond me. It really is. Either you're the real deal or you're not.
Right. So but if you're real, say the truth or quit faking it.
Yeah. But there's no half measures.
Well, see, and that's again, you come just straight out and you say it how it is, like it or don't. And you have so many people, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I guess these people feel really connected with these creatures or whatever, or they feel they're being taught something. I don't know, maybe you are too, but I don't know. If somebody's sticking needles up all my orifices and stuff, they're no chums of mine.
Well, let's not go there, because I mean, it's like sometimes you get this, and it's like, have you had anal probing? Sort of like, I'm saying no. You carry on, and you will be. Sort of like, it is so. It's just unbelievable how some people, sort of like come out with this absolute rubbish. Again, I don't know what they think it's funny, and people are sort of like talking about this on TV, sort of like, and then you'll get this, these fools, or all as they seem to know is, I met a lad some time ago, and every time I'd see him, he'd be, and to tell me about this anal probing. So I was in a shop, and he's there, and he goes, "Oh, now then, Russ, abductee and what have you. Tell me about anal probing." I said, "I'll tell you about anal probing." I says, "The next time," I says, "you say to me a comment about anal probing," I said, "you'll be anal probed with my foot." Sort of like, my foot on the anal probe up yours. You know what I mean? We're in front of about 15 people in a delicatessen shop. You know what I mean? I says, yeah, and I just said, "You seem to be fascinated with anal probing." I says, "Are you trying to tell me something?" I says, "Have you got abuse in your family? Is it something that happens to you?"
Right.
You know what I mean? And sort of like the guy, tears came down his eyes, and he just sort of like pushed past this young woman and a lad, and walked past and went out of the shop.
Yeah.
And sort of like, it's like, what is wrong with people?
Again, like I said, it seems like people feel they have a pass to do certain behaviors with people, and See, that's the thing. I didn't want to come at you with. I'm not going to mention the show, but I'd heard some different shows that you were on, and there was a lady, and she was playing the what the Close Encounters music and all that, and I was thinking, oh man, come on, don't. You come at it with. I mean, don't get me wrong. Once I started doing investigations and checking out haunted places or supposedly haunted places, you'd have coworkers want to try to be singing the Ghostbusters theme or something from Dark Shadows or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, okay, but that's a world's difference than someone who has literally been tagged and other horrific stuff happened to them. It's not a game. There's no levity in it at all. So I hope you realize I'm not trying to do that.
Yeah, it's some of these things where people, they've got shows and they do what they want, sort of like I'll come on and I'll just tell you the facts as I see them, as what's happened to me. No more, no less. If people like it, right? If they don't, they don't. I ain't going to change them. I'm not here to change people. I'm just saying, look, this is what's happened. And it's like, right, tell me, you have in America, right, yeah? The same over here. Somebody takes somebody, right, without consent, right, yeah? Abduction or kidnapping. What is it in America? What in other words, what would you get in America for kidnapping or abducting somebody?
Well, I mean, other than being beat down if you got caught.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what it is. Especially if it's something with a weapon or something like that. I mean, you might be looking at 25 years in a federal prison.
Yeah, you'd be lucky to get 10 for murder in this country. But anyway, this is what I'm saying. It's prison, right? Yeah, it's something that you would get. You would definitely get hard time. But we're talking about people doing this, right? Yeah, and nobody's accountable for it, right? Yeah. People are abducting people, but there is nobody being brought forward and being charged, prosecuted, etc. Now, obviously, there is a slight problem, and that is, where is the evidence? Now, I'm sure that you've got people, that make things up, which, it's one of these things. Now, what I cannot understand, I can't really get my head around this, right, yeah, is that you get people coming on and they're talking about being abducted, and sometimes, they talk about how they've been through a medical examination, right, yeah, some kind of medical examination, whether it's, being probed, if you want to call it probing, or had tests done, yeah, etc. Now, obviously, we're talking about sometimes that body fluids have been taken from males and females, etc. Then, of course, now you're getting this. We're getting this what I can only call strange, sort of like this scenario where people have said that they've seen babies and hybrids and what have you, right? Yeah. I cannot say that I've seen any of that. Yeah, all as I've seen when this first started was in a room where there was like very strange chairs, very very sturdy but very flimsy chairs. But there was like a dentist chair where it goes back, and I ended up in one of these, and I had a tube put down my throat, and attached to this tube was like an helmet, and this helmet put on, and I was then raised up in this chair, and I was looking up in like an arena, and there is thousands of people in this arena, all elevated, looking at some form of like screen, right? Yeah. And I just could not believe what was going on. Obviously, after that, I haven't been to the dentist since. I have a fear of going into any dentist or whatever where there's these chairs and you lay back and have your mouth sort of like opened and things put inside. So I keep away from the dentist after that. Since that, so then later on was lowered down and what have you, and went to this in this massive big like hall. There's like a wall, and this thing sort of like came down, and there was like this thing came out, and you basically drunk from this like tube that came out, and we were sick, and it was like a sluice. You were sick into this sluice that had come from this like wall. It had come down, and sort of like being sick, and this thing came, and you just washed your mouth out and what have you, and drunk this like water, flavoured water type, and then sort of like that made you even more sick and what have you, and then you basically got sort of like cleaned, and this sluice all went up and what have you, up to like this wall, and I was thinking, what's going on? What's this about? Really unbelievable. Then we had these helmets put back on, but it was like a different type of helmet. It was like a different type of helmet what we had put on, which didn't seem to have like a tube going down inside us, And then was given a weapon, and what we'd been watching in this arena, it was like a manual, training what you could only describe as a military training manual.
Like it was like teaching you field maneuvers and how engaging in combat and things like that.
Yeah, well, your basic battle fatigue training. You know what I mean? So it was like that, and then we went straight out into this, what I can only describe like a long gantry sort of like, and went through this like doorway, and we was all together like a unit, and we had helmets, and the helmets at that point had the screens on them, and everything came up, messages came up, or I should say commands, orders. Let's get it in the proper terminology. We had our orders basically came up. It told us the enemy, and it was the allies of the enemy and what have you. Which one of the strange things later on that we've come across, or what I've come across, I should say, is like an alien race, and it's tall blue like an alien grey, but much taller. I would say at least sort of like maybe 7, 8 foot tall, and it's all blue, and their allies, right? Yeah, wait for this, are Chinese. Chinese, yeah.
Huh. Now, see, I've heard some different stuff that that the Chinese are going to go ahead and like try to colonize Mars and this and that. You hear a lot of stuff, but
they're there already.
Actually,
they're already there. They're already there. Oh hell yeah, yeah. They've been there for a long time, and unfortunately, what they've done is that they're sort of like a sleeping lion. They've been a sleeping lion for a long time. Nobody realised. I've been talking about this for a long time. I was talking about this. I spoke to a magazine, and typical Yorkshire accent. Oh, we can't talk about that lad. Oh, that doesn't sell magazines. He's too much like David Icke. Oh, nobody wants to hear about bloody soldiers and fighting and wars. Oh, no. don't sell magazines. So of course, sort of like the 80s and 90s come and go. I'm talking about this. Then I had somebody took poorly in my family, and I wasn't being able to go out and basically give talks like I used to. So of course I was like put on the back burner, and of course because I wasn't talking about fluffy bunnies and teddy bears and stuff, and chocolates and candy, the type of aliens that sell magazines.
Right.
I wasn't sort of like up on the podium talking, like some people in the magazine had overtook me talking about, well, let's just say, I won't say what they're talking about, I'll let you use your own imagination. And I'm thinking to myself, wow. And I'm saying, you know what? And I said this in front of witnesses. I says, if my truth, right, yeah, if my truth is no good for you, then the rest of my footage, what I give to you, and my research is no good for you. And after that, I never bothered submitting any more information, photographs, videos to that magazine after that.
I don't blame you. Can I ask you something real quick?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Just because, like I said, it's one of those things, my train of thought, if I don't jump on it, I'll lose my ticket. You were talking about the Chinese dealing with these aliens. Now, you'd always heard the stuff like the Vril Society and like the, like the Germans and breakaway civilizations and, Antarctica and all that. Is that all bullocks, or is there any truth to that, or is that all connected? Do we all have different cultures out there?
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, it isn't, it's a fact. I haven't hidden it that I am a member of the Knights Templars, and I've had that on my Facebook page, etc. And it caused a bit of a stir because people are saying, you're a Nazi, Knights Templars, sort of like with the St. George's Cross and what have you, and then, of course, you're getting all these... Again, you get the same people out there talking about Knights Templars as the same people talking about UFOs and aliens. I've never even seen one.
Well, they have like maybe a spoonful of of this giant stew that's got all this information in it. And that's the thing. I mean, the symbolism, that was used even... I mean, God, good Lord. I mean, even by the Nazis goes back, a millennia to like early Sumer. I mean... don't get me wrong, you can attach a negative thing to a symbol, just like, say, like the swastika and stuff, but that's an ancient symbol. So, but people think that they know what's going on when they don't.
That's right, yeah. I mean, this is the big problem. The thing is, what I'm saying is, this is what I know to be true. Right, yeah. I mean, like I say, that was just one thing. I know my unit, basically, I was given... When all this first happened, because what I'm doing is I'm going through it as sort of like as and when, sort of like. But this happened to me, and it happened in strange stages. It's like there was a middle, an end, and a beginning, and the beginning was at the end, and the end sort of like near the beginning, and it's sort of like all mixed up, because what we're dealing with, right? Yeah. There's like, not only is we're traveling, right? Yeah. Now, some of it is what I would say is time travel, right? Yeah. It's got to be time travel, and the other, basically, we just materialize and dematerialize. That's more of for when you're going shorter ranges and shorter distances, right? Yeah. Not all the crafts are flying saucers. There's some strange crafts there, sort of like some of the things that I've seen, you could only really put it down as magic. Some of the things you just, when you see some of the things that have happened, and you think, how the heck is that possible? But the uniform, it was given to me, and it was like, like the thin material, like your curtain material, lace curtain. It was like that white, so very, very light. You put it on, and as soon as you put that uniform on, right, yeah, it sort of like starts to close. The front starts to close up, and it's not Velcro, and it sort of like meets, and it sort of like it starts fitting closer to you. There is a mechanism. I won't talk about what it is because then people will know. And I always listen out, and it tightens up. It does go to a black colour. I'm missing bits out here because I'm always listening out for people who can talk about the bits what I'm missing, and then I know if they're in my unit. Do you see? I know whether they're if somebody says to me, "Oh, bloody blah blah, that happens, this happens," right? Yeah, okay. So I know that you've gone through this, right? Yeah. So I miss little pieces out, but anyway. So we're given this. Initially, we had helmets, but as time has gone on, what has happened is that, like I said, I've been implanted with implants in my eyes, my ears, and my nose. So basically, I think a lot of it is to do with a tracking system, one to show us images, and the other to communicate with us. I know this is fact. I know this is fact now, you see. So the weapons is a sound weapon. Now, you had to wear an helmet when you use a sound weapon because if you didn't, it'd burst your eardrums. Right, yeah? If you aimed it at somebody and hit them with it, it'd blow them to pieces. Sort of like the sound, it's just devastating. But when you've got the helmet on, there's like you can hear commands, but there's like this right funny music in the background, right? Yeah, and if you take that helmet off, like I say, you'd be lucky if you get away with busting eardrums. They're devastating. Now that's a certain type of alien. Now it's one of these things where there's a dial. I'll call it a dial. And then you turn it to another setting, right? Yeah, and the other setting is a different type of. It's in the same rifle, but it's a different weapon, a different type of weapon, right? Yeah, it's not the sound weapon, and that basically seems to that just is amazing. You know what I mean? It's like a cannon as well, but for some unknown reason. One of the races of alien has to be. You have to use a different dial, right? Yeah, to kill that type of alien.
Okay.
So, so there again, people might not like the fact that we're talking about we are a unit. I know the name of my unit. I know my serial number.
Right.
And it's a case of.
Can I ask you a question? I've got a.
Of course, anybody who's got any questions to ask, by all means, that's what I'm here for.
Okay. Jordy, it looks like he's from around Albuquerque. That's in New Mexico, which is in the area where a lot of this stuff happens. Was asking about. It has to do with those weapons. Asked, did it have something to do about focusing? I'm not sure what he's asking here. Focusing the sound to like a coherent beam. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So it's almost like you would take a light and to make it a laser, but it's
what it does is the sound actually. There's a modifier on the end, and what it does instead of going wide, the sound doesn't go wide and travel outwards. It travels in a line.
Okay. Now I knew that there had been supposed experiments, which I'm thinking by the time we hear, they're trying to experiment, they've probably already done it and it's succeeded, if they're even talking about it. But I've heard where like you have someone walking down the street, and I think they're called targeted individuals, and maybe they'll just out of the blue go home and shoot your mom, Go home, shoot your mom, your wife, whatever. And it's like that was a weird thought, and it just keeps happening. It keeps happening to the guy cracks up and either goes after them, has a breakdown, or kills himself.
Yeah.
But somehow they were able to put the sound into their head.
That's right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's similar technology, I guess.
Well, when I first met these, right, yeah, when the walk from my bedroom wall, I listened to some music in my bedroom, and I looked, and all of a sudden I thought, that's strange. My wall went black, it turned black, and these figures walked through my bedroom wall, but they seemed to be too big to fit in the room. Like they shouldn't have actually fit in my room. And I could only put them down to like shadows or shadow beings, shadow people, or like more or less like something like a frogman, skin diver. If you remember them, we used to see him on telly as kids.
Yeah, it used to seem like in James Bond movies. Every time he would like go up and he'd take it off and have the tuxedo.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, they were like that, and one of them was what would classify as one of the officers. He came forward and he was communicating with me, talking to me. But I would say more of what do you call it now? ESP. When they're doing it through. Oh, what the heck do you call it now?
Telekinetic. Right.
Telepathic. Yeah,
telepathic.
telepathic.
Telekinetic, you'd move things. Sorry.
Yeah, telepathic. Yeah. Anyways, so he was talking and then basically showing me things, and I was getting sound coming through, and like a radio to television, but coming in through a bit out of sync, if you see what I mean. And then there was images, and I was told things, and I remember saying that, no, I won't do that. No, I won't do that. And then my sister was going to the bathroom, and she came up the stairs, and she shouted out, "Were you talking to in there?" And I said, "Oh, these," and basically walked through the wall. They turned around and walked through the wall, and back out again. And so my sister, anyway, basically I'd taken poorly after that. And I remember it was, strangely enough, it was when Stormy Norman had invaded Kuwait. Mm-hmm. It was that day when this happened, because I had to go downstairs, and when I seen that on television, I just turn the television off. I don't want to see that. And I've got it written down when it actually happened. Because I had to go get my medical records and what have you. One of the strange things is that in my medical records, when I went to see the doctor, because I became ill, after all this I became ill, and I had a beam of light sort of like shone down at me on my motorbike. I had a chopper, and I was at a level crossing, and people say, "Oh, close encounters." It was very similar. And the next day, when I went to work, I had facial burns on me. I had an half-face helmet on, and where the half-face helmet, had been, where the light, on my face and my hands and my neck, and people were taking the mickey out of me, sort of like when I told them about it, and they said, "Oh, it's like close encounters, etc." And after that, and this episode, when this wall turned black and these black like shadow beings came through the wall, I started being really ill, and it left me with something called ME, or fibromyalgia, or chronic fatigue syndrome, and I have a problem with my liver and my kidney now, and I'm meeting people that have had the same things happen around the world, with the world wide web now, and they're telling me the same thing, that they've experienced this and they've become ill, and a lot of them have got this either fibromyalgia, ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome. I call it time travel sickness.
Yeah, I'd say that'd probably be very, very appropriate. I had one more question, if it's okay.
Of course, the more the better. You've got questions, I'll answer them. Yeah.
I just feel bad just slowing you down, because I love listening to this. I don't have to say a word because it's so interesting. Angel from Kentucky, my home state, was asking something about genetics and family.
Right, yeah.
Okay, now I'm not sure if she's meaning, do you have family that have also been abducted and do this, or I think maybe she means, do you also have any family off world? Which, who knows? Maybe you, in your time doing this, you may have made some connections with other soldiers. I mean, there may be female soldiers. I don't know.
There is, yeah. Well, it's funny you should say that, and I don't usually talk about this too much, but I know, right, what she's talking about is DNA. Right, my mum said that when she was a young lass, they said something about her blood group, and she's rhesus negative. No, rhesus RH, no, positive. Hers is positive.
Oh.
So I don't know what, but somebody said, oh, it should be negative, but hers is positive. But she always said that when she was young, they did say about a blood, a blood group. I don't think it's as rare, but there's something about it. I don't know if it was O rhesus positive, I think. I don't know, but I'm presuming that that's what they mean, to do with the blood and the DNA. It could be. My dad was in something called an atomic test, and it happened in Europe, and by all accounts it shouldn't have happened, and they were using low yield bombs from tanks, apparently, when it was in Germany. No, it was in the English army after the war over in Germany. I better tell you that. But yeah, anyway, so, but have I got family? Well, one of the things what I've come across, which is strange, that most of the security that I've come across when we've been in our, what you would call, underground bases and undersea bases, are women. Now, women, for some reason, seem to, for this is for my unit and the race of aliens that take me, that they have got this ability, some of the women, to basically be able to sense a certain race of alien that can just come into their time and dimension, right? And the women can pick this up at least a good 5 minutes. A really good security personnel would pick it up 10 minutes before. So they're all around the base, and certain people, like there seems to be some kind of a royal family type of element to this, and there is guards all around them, right? But they're all around the base, and they're always, the women are always the ones that are the special security.
See, that makes sense. I don't know how much you knew about me from before, but like I said, I'd worked in prison systems before and law enforcement and all that, and I've often told people that, especially if I have somebody working with me, especially if they're female, I really trust their gut. I think it's easy to go, well, women have intuition, but some women really have intuition, and even from years of using, having to kind of trust your gut, which generally when I didn't trust my gut, it bit me. And I knew I should have in the first place. But it does seem like that there are certain women who have that extra. I don't know what it is, and I don't know if it's a genetics thing or what. But yeah, that's
extra sensitive perception. I think they call it. It's like ESP, in a way.
That's interesting.
Now the funny thing is that I'm a scout, right? Yeah, in this unit, and I have the same as the women. Well, there's not many. There's not many of the males that have this. So I'm like I say, I know what I am, and I know in the unit, I know my rank, I know my position, etc. And like I say, I'm one of the only ones. There's not many that I've come across that are male that are scouts. So, It is strange.
That is, it's very interesting. It's sort of a mark of distinction too, and so I think that's pretty cool. Was going to ask you one more thing. Brian from, is it Milwaukee? Yeah, I think it's Milwaukee. Had a question because you were talking about China and being connected with this and different races.
Mm.
And like I said, and after you answer that, I want to make sure to get your websites and your stuff because we got about 10 minutes left. Is there any race or thing like this? I guess what he's asking is there any sort of war, space-wise, that, like all the different countries, I guess, are sort of a black ops sort of secretive thing?
Hell yes, yeah.
Well, tell me about that.
I've seen people on the television, right? Yeah, in my unit, right? Yeah, over in Eastern Europe, right? Yeah, wearing certain uniforms of a different nation. And I'm thinking, what are you doing over there? You know what I mean? It's obvious what we're doing, and that is that we've been taken. I know for certain that we've been put into different countries. We've taken people, we've grabbed people, you know, sort of like you can call them maybe presidents, senators, you know, sort of like people in so-called high power positions around the world in different countries. We've taken them, we've nabbed them, you know, sort of like, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. Apart from if you're another alien race and sort of like we come into contact, and then there's a firefight, and then of course, you know, but there's you see, the thing is, you don't probably realise, but there's a media block on all this. There's a media block on quite a lot of things that's going on around the country. You know, it's like, you know, people just don't realise just what is going on.
Well, who are they taking their orders from? I mean, are they taking it from somewhere off-world, or is it a kind of combination of power families?
What you've got to understand is that there's more than one alien race, right? Yeah. You know, we've got bases. There's other alien races that have got bases. Right, yeah. They're taking people, they're using them as slaves for all sorts of things, mining, sometimes they're being sold, obviously, even, you could say, there's a very, very nasty sort of like undercurrent running, which says that maybe some people are used for sex and some people are used for food, for some of the other races that are maybe not as human-like as the ones that I've come across.
Is this like the draconians, they call them?
You can call them draconians, yeah, lizards, and what have you. I was talking about these people a long time ago. You know, they're not the ones that take me. The ones that abduct me are more like, you know, Nosferatu. You know, the French Dracula, tall, bald, pointy ears, not the same teeth and what have you. And they're a bit stockier. You know, they're all at least 10 foot tall, you know, 15 foot tall, and I have seen some even bigger, which appear to be some kind of royal family. I don't know how it works, but when you're not really letting to where they're, you know, I saw a glimpse of that once, but they do seem to be able to come down to sort of like 6 foot, but usually when that happens, you get your butt kicked. You've done something wrong, you know what I mean? So, you know, like me, when I actually blew something up, what I shouldn't have, and sort of like, you know, I did get my butt kicked for that, and that were on Earth as well. We're on Earth.
Well, let me ask you this, and like I said, we're getting down into about the last 5 minutes of it. Do you have a website that people can contact you, an email?
Yeah, you can get to me at the BritishUFOHunters.com, or you can contact me on BerwinMountainsUFOCrash.com.
Awesome. And you know, that was the thing too about the Berwyn connection, because there's like a small town up around Chicago, Illinois, and there was I'd never heard the word before. I just knew it was a small town in around Chicago, and then I saw that and I was like, and it just sort of stuck in my head. I always thought that was kind of sort of an interesting thing, which I'm sure I guarantee we get anything we've got here, we took it from the homeland. So, but did you want to discuss anything about your show real quick, like the last few minutes that we've got?
Yeah, well, you'll have to come onto my show. I'll invite you on as a guest. I've already put you down. My show is called Russ's Mixed Bag, and we talk about all things paranormal, as in paranormal outside the realms of normal science. Obviously, that's UFOs, aliens. We have Bigfoot, ghosts, Loch Ness monster, Sasquatch, Bermuda Triangle. We also look at crop circles, ley lines, you name it. If somebody wants to come on and talk about paranormal, whatever aspects, always welcome to come on my show. It's on the network. I think you probably know is KCOR, and it's what is it now? Revolution Radio.
Right. Yeah, the KCOR. That's a heavy hitter.
Yeah, I've been on that show a number of times. Now I'm a host of a show there. I've also been on, what do you call it now, Coast to Coast Radio. 4 hours I did on Coast to Coast, talking about a book I helped an author write about the Berwyn Mountains incident. And again, we're talking about an incident where there was depth charging in the Irish Sea. They basically depth charged and brought 3 of these flying saucers out of the sea. They took off, headed inland, and then, of course, that was intercepted by a new jet at the time, which was the Harrier jump jet, which basically it resulted in craft coming down, their craft and our craft.
Good God. Well, Russ, we're about at the end of it, buddy. I just want to say thank you for being on, and I definitely want to have you back on because I want to get deeper into this thing. We just opened that up, and I want to discuss that with you. I also want to discuss what you know about some connections with Aleister Crowley and some of the weird Loch Ness stuff. You always hear about the Loch Ness monster, but then you also hear that there was other mystical stuff that was maybe less mystical and more off-world science, but we saw it as mystical because we didn't understand what we were seeing. But
that's right. Yeah.
What I'm going to do, Russ, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cue my outro.
And thank you very much for having me on your show. And like I say, I'll speak to you later about coming on my show.
Absolutely. Like I said, if you'll stick around, and I'll do this outro, and I'm glad to talk to you about it. So, but everybody, I want to thank you guys for listening in. As always, you can find House of Asher on Spreaker and also on YouTube under Conflict Radio. I want to make sure to thank Allers Oddities for backing my show, and I appreciate everything you guys did. Go out and enjoy your day, but as the sun goes down and the shadows grow long, make sure to check under your bed, check your closet, check out that back window toward the dale and all the things of nature, because you never know what's out there. It might be something positive. You might have a very large gray waiting on you. So until next time, enjoy yourself, love yourselves, love each other, and don't be afraid to be a little scared. It's good for everybody. Until next time, take care, everybody. God bless.